And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested tonight. Great discussion tonight, folks. I have a person that's really knowledgeable in activism, advocacy, and the art of protesting, because it is an art and a science, folks. It's both has to do with the numbers of it as well as the nuance of it and when and how and where. So we have a great guest tonight, Ezra Levin, that I'll introduce in a moment. But thank you for being here. And I'm so glad everybody's joining us tonight, because I think there's a good mix of while we've got some hard work ahead of us, we've gotten some good work done. And we have to look at all of our successes. And the successes are many right now. And so my friend Ezra and I are going to be going through all of that. So I'm so glad to be here tonight. Marie Newman, welcome to my live Substack with Ezra Levin, the co-executive director of Indivisible. And a little bit about Ezra, folks. Really great background. And I wanted him to tell you the wonderful story of Indivisible. Indivisible and I have an interesting story in that in January of 2017, we were both born into politics, professional politics. I was volunteering before then. So, but Ezra has a great background for this stuff, folks, because he's been on all sides of it. He worked on the Hill for many years for a congressman from Texas, one of my former colleagues, lovely guy, Wayne Doggett, and then also was worked for Prosperity Now, which was an anti-poverty organization, as a policy director, and many other things. And he and his lovely wife, Leah Greenberg, is co-director and co-founder of indivisible.org. So please welcome my very knowledgeable guest tonight, Ezra Levin. Hello.
Hey, Marie, it is great to be here. It's great to see you. It's great to be part of this conversation. And I don't know how good the microphone is on my phone here, but maybe you're even hearing one of my two children yell outside my door
I
right
love
now.
that. We like babies and dogs on this show, just so you know, because my
There-
beagle, who has a lot of opinions, inevitably shows up at some point. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're all ready. We're all family here. So Ezra, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Yeah.
I think for a good starting point, folks, let's go ahead and talk about how is Indivisible and why Indivisible was born as a national advocacy organization. So Ezra, take it away and tell the story.
Look, necessity is the mother of invention. I think that's what I would say is we didn't mean to start Indivisible. When Trump was first elected, two things happened. There was one, an interview with a future Trump appointee talking positively about the Japanese internment camps during World War II as a model for what we could do with Muslims, immigrants, and refugees. Heinous stuff. That's what we were seeing in the first Trump term. But then within a day or so of that, we saw an interview with then Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in which he said, well, we lost. That's what happens. I guess we're just going to have to figure out a way to work with this guy. I think we can work on infrastructure together. And so as of the end of 2016, there was a very realistic possibility that America's near-term future would be one in which the roads to our new internment camps were well paved with bipartisan dollars. And so we wrote Indivisible using our own perspective. This is my spouse, Leah, and me, our own perspective as former congressional staffers and advocates to say, no, we can actually say no to this. And if we're going to say no to this effectively, we can't just leave this up to the politicians at the national level. It's got to come from the grassroots. And in fact, we learned from the Tea Party. We disagreed with their bigotry, their violence, their racism, but damn it, Marie, they knew how to organize. They knew how to focus on their own elected officials. They knew how to say no. They didn't win everything, but gosh, they really changed things. And so we tried to draw lessons that we saw when we were congressional staffers being targeted by these folks and say, well, we can organize locally. We can start our own little groups. We can focus on our elected officials. We can use our leverage, but we've got to do that. We've all got to do that because that's how a representative democracy works. So we put this guide out. It was a Google Doc. And shockingly, people read it and they all started emailing us. And all the emails said the exact same thing. This guide is full of typos and it was. But beyond that, then they said, and also I'm starting an Indivisible group. I've got one in Tallahassee. I've got one in Austin. I've got one outside Albany. And what do we do? And so we started organizing with these Indivisible groups going on 9 years ago, and we haven't stopped since.
I know I remember when I read that document, I was like, but this is brilliant. And right away I was like, well, this is what the Republicans have been doing for 20 years, having been in
Yeah.
advocacy and activism for
Yeah.
30 or 35 years. I'm like, well, this is brilliant that we have reverse engineered this on our side. It's great. So I was thrilled. And I also, I'm a big fan of typos because, as everybody on this call knows, there's always one in mine, right, guys? Like, there's always one in my newsletter. So
That's how you know it's not AI.
that's
That's your real writing. Yeah.
that's how I comfort myself every day, Ezra.
Yeah. The
So
humanity makes it beautiful and real. I love it. I love
that's
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So let's get right into it. So let's talk about the state of play a little bit, and then
Yeah.
our wins and where we can improve and all those things on the activism side. So right now Chicago's kind of the epicenter right now because all of the ICE protests, and I've been out at the ICE protests every Friday. I try to keep a healthy diet of once a week. I used to do it once a month. Now we're down to up to once a week because we all have real jobs, and as do I. But I have to tell you, I've just been compelled. The amount of injustice, racial profiling, I wrote about that
Right.
today.
Yeah.
Um, all of the insanity has been crazy. So I wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit about your perspective on the bigger protests like No Kings. We've had a couple of them now. We had the individual ICE protests. How do you think they're working? What do we need to do? Just go ahead and jam on that.
Yeah, I was just writing about this as well for my newsletter, and I think it's a really tough time to be organizing because we're organizing under a fascist regime. And look, our goals are simple. We want to reduce harm. We want to reduce the ability of the regime to do that harm and concentrate power in its own hands. And we eventually want to retake power so we can usher in an era of accountability. Those are top level goals, but why can't we achieve those right now? What's stopping us? Who is the enemy in this fight? It's not Trump. It's not MAGA. It's not this regime. It's not weak-kneed Democrats who won't fight back. Those are all opponents at some point along the line. But the enemy in this fight is actually much more powerful and much more difficult to combat. The enemy is nihilism and cynicism and fatalism, a sense that there's nothing we can do. It doesn't matter. The regime is just going to steamroll us. So we might as well just protect ourselves and hold back in hopes that this passes. That is a really dangerous enemy because that is how authoritarians win. They convince you that you are powerless, that they are all powerful, so you just give up. Because this guy is not all powerful. He is weak. He is a lame duck. He is implementing an unpopular policy. So the way that we judge our success, we listen to the anti-authoritarian experts. It is a mistake for any grassroots anti-authoritarian movement to say, have we stopped all the bad things? Because if that's your measure for success, it's not going to be the case. You're not going to achieve that overnight. Instead, here's how a successful grassroots movement against authoritarianism measures their success. 1, are you bigger than you were before? 2, are you more unified than you were before? 3, are your tactics proliferating? So you're doing different stuff than you were before. And 4, is the regime less popular than it was before? And Marie, I can tell you, every month for the last 11 months, I could say yes, 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 yes. That does not mean that the regime is slowing down. That's not what they do. I'm sorry to say it's going to get worse before it gets better. We see him. He is cornered right now. His popularity is taking a nosedive. He is losing the support of his own party in this shutdown fight. He is invading and occupying American cities with National Guard from other states. He's terrorizing American communities with a secret police force. This is not the stuff that a popular leader with a feeling of security in his position does. These are the actions of a weak, insecure man who's on the way out and know his time is ticking and he's got to move fast. So how are things going? On the one hand, things are going like shit, Marie. They're terrorizing American communities and they're dismantling American democracy. On the other hand, we are building up the largest peaceful movement for democracy in modern American history. And that's going really well.
Yeah. I, I couldn't agree more. Folks, be heartened. And one of the reasons I brought Ezra on this evening to represent Indivisible is that they have been through every permutation of this fight. So what I would say was the dress rehearsal was 2016 through 2020, right?
Uh,
And then we had a little bit of a respite where we could take a break. And then we got lulled into some complacency, folks. I'm not going to lie about that. And then we are back. So but we are seeing some improvement, right? We're seeing that, when you boycott these billionaires, they take a little pause. And it's just like anything else. Capitulation never, ever, ever works. Pushing back does. You're not always successful, but it is the sum total of the pushing back.
I 1,000% agree. These guys are weak bullies. They are weak bullies and they're lashing out. And I think what we have seen time and time again is if you organize effectively against, they cower, they switch gears. They might not admit that they are defeated.
Yeah.
No target in the history of grassroots targeting has ever said, they convinced me. That's why I moved. That's not how this works. But they do move. And we have seen that repeatedly over the last 11 months. And I think that is true for the Trump regime. That's true for institutions like Disney and ABC News that capitulated and then got pushback. And it's true for Democrats too. Remember, 11 months ago when Trump won, we saw from Democrats something similar to what we saw when Trump originally won, which is, there's not going to be any resistance. Defiance is not going to work out. We've got to show how reasonable we are. We got to work with the other side. You grassroots folks, we're not going to listen to you. That was the mainstream Democratic position in November of this year, 11 months ago. And over the course of 11 months, what we have seen is they've shifted from kind of condescendingly telling us to go away to engaging in performative exercises of opposition, not really using their leverage, but it's a step forward. They're actually talking the talk, to right now we are seeing a somewhat unified Democratic Party fight a real fight and use the leverage that they've got. 6 months ago, they were surrendering without any fight at all. Right now, they're digging in. That's progress, Marie. And I'm not counting on winning tomorrow, but I am counting on progress, and I see progress.
I couldn't agree more. And folks, I want to be clear about Indivisible uniquely. Well, many activist groups have been doing amazing things. Move On, 5051,
Oh,
all of
yeah.
the groups. I love them all, and they are sisters and brothers in the fight. However, Indivisible has been uniquely helpful in getting our own Democratic members to move on things because for the longest time, many old Democratic donors, old guard Democratic politicos, consultants, kind of the DC class of people said, oh gosh, we just have to stay united. Well, once in a while, guess what? You got to kick your team in the behind and say, no, it's not good enough. And you got to keep going. You can do that with, the carrot and the stick a little bit, right? Is that like, bravo and thank you for working hard. Like right now, we push them hard. I got to tell you, had Indivisible and other groups and other leaders and grassroots people like everybody on this call, if we had not pushed Schumer and Jeffries into holding the line on this shutdown, I'm not sure they would have. What do you feel, Ezra?
I 100% agree. And look, I am not here to yell at any individual member. I'm not here to complain about the Democratic Party. We all are the Democratic Party. When we're complaining about it, then we need to ask ourselves, well, what are we demanding? How are we supporting it to be strong? And so I'm proudly cheerleading the Dems right now.
Definitely.
We called on Chuck Schumer to resign from leadership after he surrendered in March, and I am happy he's fighting now. And I would love to be behind him cheerleading a unified party. My goal is a unified opposition party against a fascist takeover. And I push out of love. I push out of wanting that unification. It is a disservice to the Dems to say, yeah, you can just roll over and play dead. That's okay. I'll still love you. I'll still support you. No, we need to demand better. And one of my favorite things that's happened over the past 48 hours is, I've been spending the last several weeks telling Dems, we are behind you in this fight on the shutdown. And I've got good news. The cavalry's coming in. On No King's Day, we're going to have millions of people in the street, and they're going to be there cheering you on, congratulating you, and thanking you for standing up against this regime. And also, if you surrender before No Kings, they will be calling for new leadership. And just in the last 24, 48 hours, a new Republican talking point has emerged, which is, well, the Democrats are only standing up to us right now because they're worried about No King's Day. To which I say, that's great. That's democracy. That's how this should work. And I view that is representatives responding to their constituents. What do Republicans do? They just respond to their donors. That's why they look at that and say, how dare those Democrats listen to their constituents showing up in numbers that haven't been seen in modern American history? I'm sorry. That's how the democracy should work. It is working, and I'm proud of that.
That's right. And we all should be collectively, right? And everybody on this call, all of your colleagues and all the activism groups, all the advocacy folks, and everybody that goes to any protest ever. I see all of these amazing people during the day around ice clusters here in the Chicago area. Just a bunch of moms out on the street in Berwyn, Illinois, where there's been some ice activity. Um, Shutting these people down and saying, we are not going to take this. We are
Yeah.
not going to take it. And I will tell you, I echo what you're saying is that I do all this with love. I've had a couple of former colleagues call me and they were a little cranky, Ezra. I will tell you because I'm beating them up a little bit. But I say that, look, I love you and I want you to succeed. But
Yeah.
guess what?
Yes.
Nobody does things that they don't want to do without being pushed, right? So
Yep.
my job is to push. Everybody on this call, your job is to push and then give them credit where credit's due. Like right now, we're winning this shutdown,
That's right.
folks.
That's right.
We are winning this like nobody's business. So that is due to all of the healthy and effective pressure we've put on our teammates, which are the members of Congress. So
Yep.
as long as we've been talking about it a little bit, let's talk about No King's Day. Can you share a little bit about what it is? And it's an extension of what has gone on. And for new folks on the call that are new to advocacy, a little bit about why it's so important.
Well, let's give some historical context here
Yeah.
because in the first Trump term, the single largest day of protest was an incredible day of protest. It was around families, if families belong together in response to family separation, this horrific policy coming out of the first Trump term. This was in 2018. And on that day, we had 750 events nationwide, a huge historic set of events. It was roughly in scale the same size as the Women's March would happen the previous year. So 750 events, high watermark for single day protests in the first Trump term. In April for Hands Off, we had 1,300 events and 3 million people. On No Kings 1 in June, we had 2,169 events in 27 countries, 50 states, and every single congressional district in the country. No Kings 2, which is happening in 10 days on October 18th, we have more events and more RSVPs for it than we had for No Kings 1. No Kings 2 in 10 days is going to be the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. I can tell you that with confidence. So what is it going to be? Part of this, No Kings 1 was largely in response to Trump doing this ridiculous military parade for himself. It was a birthday parade for him. He wanted to look like a powerful leader. We made him look ridiculous and pathetic. No Kings 2 is largely in response to the crackdown on our First Amendment rights. He is invading and occupying American cities. He is terrorizing American communities. He is bullying communities, and he is threatening to bring down the hammer on peaceful dissent. What we know is that the best way to protect your First Amendment rights is to exercise your First Amendment rights. If you do not show up peacefully in opposition to this authoritarianism, you don't have those rights. He will steamroll you. So one of the things I hope is that this is enormous. Another thing that I hope is it's not just a one-day thing, that we successfully funnel people into productive on-the-ground organizing where they are calling the shots. So not just a one-day protest. No one-day protest in the history of authoritarianism has ever defeated the authoritarian. You have to engage people in persistent on-the-ground action. The number I have in my head comes from Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan, some of these experts in authoritarianism, 3.5%. 3.5% of the population, not on one day, but persistently engaged in organizing. In the U.S. context, that's 11 or 12 million. We were about half there on No Kings 1. We need to keep building. I hope we achieve that in No Kings 2.
I have a funny feeling you're going to. Just the activity I'm seeing here is enormous, and it is probably another 50% lift from just the June protests. So I think that we're usually the Midwest is a good barometer for those things, and I see it. I do a lot of speaking engagements throughout the Midwestern states, and I see it. Believe me, people are super fired up. And you know what I love, Ira? I'm seeing a lot of folks that are brand new to the movement.
Good. That's what I really want.
It's heartening.
And I would encourage everybody on here. There is no multi-million-dollar ad campaign. We're not spreading this through big mega donors that are making sure the word gets out. The way this gets out is word of mouth. It's everybody on this call saying, "Oh shoot, I got to find my No King's Day protest." And then when you do, go and notify everybody in your community. Make sure that people understand this is the place to be. If you want to be part of history, if you want to have fun dancing and singing and chanting and carrying around funny signs, awesome. You got a plan for October 18th, but it's up to all of us.
Yeah.
Marie and I, we're talking. I'm not the leader of this movement. You're not the leader of this movement. The leaders of this movement are all over the country, and they're people who raised their hand and said, "Oh, I guess I got to do something." That is who's leading this, and we need more of it.
That's so right. Ezra, quick aside, indivisible.org is where you can go sign up and find your local protest,
You
correct?
can't. You can find it at indivisible.org. You can find it at nokings.org. I don't care how you get there, but get there. I really do. I think there's too much in this ecosystem around how can we capture people's email addresses or their cell phone numbers so we can go and ask them for money sometime. I don't care about that. I want numbers of people out getting engaged productively. So by all means, sign up for Indivisible's newsletters. You'll hear from us sometimes. Sign up and RSVP for No King's Day. But the number one thing I want folks to do is show up and bring a few friends.
And by the way, I'm just going to reiterate for folks that are just jumping on the call, the efficacy attached to the healthy diet, regularity, and consistency of protesting. So the
Yes.
more of these we have, the more we get under the Trump regime's skin and makes them feel incredibly uncomfortable, the more we see in direct proportion his plummeting polling. So
Yes.
his general approval has gone from high 40s to I think the aggregate median number now is 39.5 across all of the various topics.
Yeah.
That's amazing, folks. And that's because everybody on this call keeps on chipping away at these issues. So get out there on October 18th. And one more time, that's indivisible.org or nokings.org, right?
That's
That's right.
perfect. Yes, please do.
So let's talk about how this movement continues to build and why it's working. So
Yeah.
we've seen big things happen, right? Is that Jimmy Kimmel was taken down, the world ignited and went on fire, and
Yeah.
he was brought back. ABC kind of kowtowed and apologized to everybody. Same
Yep.
with Harvard pushed back, right, and said
Yes,
we're not
that's
going
right.
to let you get away with this. They won. Largely California did some good things and they pushed back. Right now, our governor, J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois, is pushing back.
That's right.
And you know what? There's a lot of dancing and,
Yes.
coming back a little bit, coming forward. So I fully expect him to do the taco, which is chickening out, right?
Yep.
So to that end, here's what I'll say to you is that we're building something powerful here. And when I say it's everybody on this call,
Yep.
led
Yep.
by Indivisible and all these other groups. But there's this notion, I wrote about this a few weeks ago, and people were very curious about it, the notion of mass non-cooperation or a
Yeah.
general strike,
Yeah.
typically run by unions and activists, right?
Yep. Yep.
So what I'd like you to talk about is the historical kind of significance of that, and then how that will drive us into a non-cooperation period or a general strike potentially in 2026. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Ezra.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to be diversifying our tactics in this way. And I think there's a natural evolution of the movement in that direction. For the first several months of this year, we were very focused on elected officials. That meant members of Congress, state legislators, governors. And there's some real good that you can do there, but I don't think it's adequate because this regime is not just bulldozing or bullying Democratic or Republican lawmakers. It's also bullying media institutions, law firms, universities, businesses. We see this with our own eyes. Most of the time, let's be real. Most of the time when it bullies one of those institutions, that institution has been folding. For every Disney or ABC News or every Harvard that you can name, there are 5 to 10 other big institutions that have said, oh, okay, we'll just go along with you. And there hasn't been a rapid response. No, the people don't want this. What worked with Disney? There was a clear connection between pressure from the regime and capitulation. There was a target who actually cared what we thought. These were left-leaning leaders of Disney who didn't want to be not welcome company at their next cocktail hour. We had a specific demand that they could give on. They could put Kimmel back on, and we had millions of people engaged in pushing back. And all of this went down over the course of a small number of days, not multiple weeks or months. It was something bad happens, we respond, we put the pressure, there's a clear demand, boom. And that's important for Disney, that's important for ABC, that's great for Kimmel, but that's not the point. The point is not just them. The point is the message it sends to every other media institution who thought, oh, well, if I get pressure, I'll probably just cave too. We want them thinking, oh, shit, if I cave, maybe they're going to come for me next. We want them factoring that into their political calculus so more people stand up. When we say courage is contagious, this is the other side of courage being contagious. because they factor in this pressure might come, and we need to do more of that. So coming out of No Kings One, we trained hundreds of thousands of people in these principles of strategic non-cooperation, which again is not focused on members of Congress. It's focused on businesses, media institutions, universities. How can you use the leverage that you've got to focus on these institutions and help them see that it's in their own interest to start pushing back? That is individual campaigns like we've seen on Harvard or other universities or media institutions. But you're pointing to something bigger. You're pointing to something huge, historic, a general strike. Here's what I would say about a general strike. General strikes are very easy to call for and very difficult to execute on. That's important because if you call for a general strike and you say, we're going to do this now, and then you don't have the goods, the message you send is that you are weak and the regime can steamroll you. So we should not just call it and then fail to deliver. One of the things we were able to do with Disney was call it and deliver the pressure. That is
Yeah.
very important. Not going to lie, you can bluff sometimes, but you can't bluff in big ways. That's very dangerous. So the way I see it, with each of these protests that we've been putting together, starting with in February, March with the town halls, leading to the April hands off, to May Day in May, to No Kings in June, to John Lewis Day of Remembrance, Good Trouble Lives On in July, to Labor Day in September, to No Kings 2 in October, we are building the movement. We're picking more people in. We are convincing people that it's worth their time to get involved. And we need to keep on doing that headed into 2026.
Right.
Because what we know historically is that a very typical inflection point for authoritarian regimes is when they suffer a loss at the ballot box. So they have elections, they don't like the outcomes, and then they use, I don't know, a secret police force or a National Guard to subvert the election results. And in that moment, if you are not able to actually show that you have popular opposition to the regime in a general strike, multi-day, possibly multi-week kind of way,
Yeah.
it's very hard to come back from that moment. So in my mind, we are building towards that kind of display of force. And also, I want to be real, we don't have it yet.
That's right. And I think that's important for everybody to note is that while we're not there, we are well on our way, though.
Yes.
I will say Indivisible and Move On have done great trainings around how to protest, why it's important, and how we build the movement over time. And these are critical issues because Ezra is so right. We want to be successful and we want to make a point. And the importance of having a specific ask. It's not unlike the shutdown, right? Is that the Democratic leadership, I mean, I'm going to give it to Schumer and Jeffries, and I've been angry at them for at times, right, over the last 10 months. But they did it. They had one specific request about the Obamacare subsidies, bring them back and hold them. And they've stuck to that. And now we have them on the run. We are winning in these shutdown, folks, way winning, not even by a little bit, by a lot, not just in polling, but you can see it on the Hill that Republicans are rethinking things. And now there's lots of complexity around the Epstein files and a bunch of silly things. But just to stay on target here,
Yeah.
all of this is working in coordination with the other.
Can I just tell you a little story about that?
Oh, love it.
I 1,000% agree with you that there are stated demands now. I can't. I spent the month of August railing at Schumer and Jeffries that they need to have a demand. They were saying vaguely they were going to fight, but just as in March, there wasn't a clear demand, and without that we don't have anything. We can't go into the negotiations.
Yeah.
And then after weeks of that kind of pressure, and it wasn't just me, it was all over the country, people saying, okay, what are we actually fighting for? You've had 6 months to come up with it. I was worried they were just going to surrender. But instead of that, they did, to your point, they stated their demands. And what that created, it allowed us all to say, okay, that's the play. We might disagree with it. You might have other
Sure.
ideas. You might concern. But if that's the play, great. We're running the play. And now we're doing it. And you're right. The Republicans are floundering. They are fracturing in the face of this ridiculously popular demand because 57% of MAGAs support this, let alone normal Republicans, let alone independents, let alone Democrats who support it at ridiculous numbers. We should all be encouraged to see this change over time. I think it bodes well for the future.
Yeah. Oh, I think we're all doing just the right thing. So everybody on this call know that these things are all worth it. They build. on
Yeah.
each other, and they really create a lot of momentum. So we're in this phase of momentum now. We were building before, we're in momentum. We're going to get to, and
Yeah.
so everybody again, October 18th, go to either indivisible.org or nokings.org. I do have one question I ask my guests at the end every time, Ezra, and I like people to be aware of things. So on Sundays, I have a show on WCPT called Ignore at Your Risk. So I ask that question of my guests is, what do you think we're ignoring at our risk?
I'm going to say something here that I think at first you're going to say, what do you mean we're ignoring it? It's all over the news. It's about ICE, because I think there is a rich debate within Democratic circles about whether immigration is a quote unquote loser issue for us. And we shouldn't focus on ICE. But ICE right now is in the news. We're seeing what they're doing in Chicago. We're seeing what they're doing in LA. We're seeing what they're doing around the country. But I think the thing that folks haven't really baked into their political or organizing analysis is the ICE we have today is the ICE that they built before they got $171 billion in the big ugly bill. ICE was just funded to the hilt, but that money hasn't started flowing yet. They're going now on a hiring spree to get all the Proud Boys they can into ICE. They are going to start funneling this money into communities around the country. If you think it is bad now, based on the pictures you're seeing, this is the underfunded version of ICE. They have passed the bill where the money will start flowing soon. So I see all these quote unquote smart political analysts saying, well, I don't know about immigration. Sure, these individual instances are unpopular, but Democrats should really just focus on healthcare or jobs. That's a loser. I, I will tell you, we have not yet factored into our political analysis what this secret police force is going to do to jumble American politics. Because Americans don't like what they're seeing now, and it's going to get significantly worse when these dollars flow. So smart politicians, I think, at this moment, Marie, will be doing what you're doing, will be doing what other folks are doing, which is show up at these ICE facilities, push back now, get on the right side of history now, and start building the opposition now, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse over time, and it's going to get more politically devastating for the other side and more dangerous for everybody else.
By the way, I just want to remind everybody about all the history that we know, right? Is that in all of these fascist regimes, there's some form of secret police, and
Yes.
frequently it involves xenophobia.
Yes.
Frequently. So
Yeah.
in Italy and in Germany, it was exactly the same. And in Russia, by the way, that they built these anti immigration police forces and then evolved them into being just police that go and scoop up anybody.
That's
So
right.
we're seeing right now racial profiling like I have never seen in my life. It is, it not just makes me tearful, it makes me enraged. I
Yep.
just can't even but to that end, folks, I think Ezra brings up a great point is that we must fight ICE. Now, I'll give you a little bit of good news because we're about good news and warnings tonight. So the good news out of this is that I do see that their recruitment is down 20%. Oh gosh, that's too bad. Poor babies. But you know what? It's working. And this is a simple thing. This is called relational and cooperational advocacy is letting people know, all of your friends know, wow, if you have a friend that has decided to join
Yeah.
ICE, not sure I want to be friends with you. I'm just got to be honest with you. And you need to draw the red line, folks, with friends of friends of friends and say, look, I just cannot support whatever they are doing because they are breaking the law. What they did in the South Shore area, in the Chicago area a week ago, rappelling in with a Black Hawk
Oh my
military
God.
operations and zip tying kids, and they did zip tie kids, by the way, they did, just let's all be clear. And they scooped up 37 people, I think 35 of which had to be let go because they did absolutely nothing wrong and had no record. And by the way, it was they said they were going after a Venezuelan gang, and then they just picked up people that happened to live in that building and then trashed every single apartment in that building. So let's be real about the ICE and pushing back on them. We can do that tactically on the ground, make them be uncomfortable, film them. I think Governor Pritzker has an amazing message out there right now is that you see something, say something, and film something.
Yeah.
So do it, do it, do it. Hey, Ezra, this has been so helpful tonight. And folks, if you have questions, you can always hit Ezra and I up about advocacy and Indivisible's work. But again, it's indivisible.org or nokings.org. Sign up for a local event. And by the way, folks, go to an Indivisible event in your area. It provides great community, and you get a lift, and you're with friends, and usually funny things happen. So enjoy. Ezra, I'm so appreciative of you and your lovely wife, Leah, for founding this movement and keeping it going. And let me know how things go. Folks, have a great evening. It was good to see everybody.
Great talking, Marie.